I want to talk about love later on, so essentially, in a much broader perspective. Because many of our human relationships, I think, can be characterized by that word in some way, shape, and form. So just think about the general framework of us interacting with other people around us. And that will be characterized by that word. So while we can talk about romantic love, we can talk about non-romantic love too. And there's so many different varieties and kinds. But I think every single one of us experiences it, gives it, takes it, and is around it. So it is relevant to all of us. And it's really great to dig into this topic because actually the scriptures, Torah, has a lot to tell us about love. I mean, a whole lot. In fact, I'm always, I thought about this topic for a while and I said, I don't want to take it because I don't know when I'm actually going to be able to accomplish it. Like, this is like too big. Talk about the meaning of life. Like, when does that conversation end? Like, when I talk about love, like, how do I end that conversation, essentially? I know how to get it started, but how will I ever end that conversation? Because the topic is just so huge and all-encompassing. But you know what? I thought that I would just kind of move in a very faith-like environment where I'm just going to take off and we'll see how long the fuel in that jet lasts, and we'll land it when we land it, okay? But we'll start our conversation about love. So I called this particular section Love Human, Love Divine, because those are the two most obvious aspects, I think, of love that most people recognize. I mean, this is what we come in contact all the time. So the question I have for you, it sounds just like in that song, okay? Do you know the 80s song, What is Love, right?
Yes.
Baby, don't hurt me no more, right? See, when I ask that question, that's what everybody who is like the child of the 80s or the 90s, that's where they go. Twist your neck. See, he knows the dance too. So everybody goes there because that has become the iconic song. If you ever pull it up on YouTube, the video is awful, but the song is fun, okay? And everybody kind of sings it and hums it, And what does it have to do with Baby Don't Hurt Me No More? We're all wondering, what's that about? But the question is real. What is love? What are some of the ways in which we can define life? What are some of the simple definitions that come to your mind? And I know I'm asking you to define something quite multifaceted, but let's get started. Let's get going. So here's one definition. So according to most dictionaries, love is a feeling of affection for a person. So that's one definition of love. Another one in the dictionary that you'll commonly find is that it's an attraction that includes some sort of a sexual desire felt by people who have a romantic relationship. So there's a deeper question to what love is, but then we're still on the surface. We're trying to figure out what in the world does that word even means. When I say it, when I use it, how do I use that word in a sentence, essentially, right? So that is one of the meanings. Obviously, people in a romantic relationship experience feelings towards each other. We describe those feelings as love. Okay, so that's another one. How about this one? A fondness towards another person arising out of kinship, personal tie, or common interest. So, speaking of your guitar, strong enthusiasm or affinity for something one likes and enjoys. See, I know you like and enjoy your guitar. We use the word love about a sandwich, okay, and then about a person. So obviously, it's a broad range of possible meanings that's out there, okay? But we're trying to corner at least the general understanding. What are the uses of this word? What are the legitimate meanings that we put behind this word when we use it? Now, obviously, when we're going to get to the scriptures, it's going to get much deeper. Okay, you understand that? Because scriptures tend to approach this topic from a whole different vector. I mean, this is a different story. So, a little disclaimer here for you. If you're going to keep looking for dictionary definitions of love, what you're going to see is that most dictionaries will mention God's love, and they will mention the human love for God, but do not define it or explain it. They just kind of say, there is such a thing, God's love, divine love. So that's why I'm talking about love human, love divine. But we tend to focus on the human aspect of it. What I've read in the dictionaries as I looked at the definition, words like feeling, affection, attraction, desire, fondness, enthusiasm, affinity, all of this, what is common theme that runs through all these definitions and words that we just encountered? Emotion. Emotion. And Michael earlier said feeling. Emotion, feeling. That's when I see all those words, that's what they are. They're feelings and they're emotions. And so if you just look at the dictionary, if you don't know what love is, if you never heard the song, right? If you land on planet Earth and you walk around these crazy humans and they start using the word love and you're like, what is love? And you go to the dictionary, that's what you'll find. So the question, of course, I have to you, is love an emotion or a feeling? Is that true? Is what we read in the dictionary really true? Is love an emotion or feeling? Partly.
It encompasses that.
It's more.
It's a choice. I think it's a verb.
It's a verb. Good. Exactly. So dictionaries help us figure out how the word is used. So if love is not a feeling or an emotion, if it is so much more, and you guys gave me some really good pointers here, then why aren't we using those words to describe it more often so they would actually make it into a dictionary, right? Why are the dictionaries so superficial? It is very subjective. What we're catching on is that when we express our love, even when we say to someone that we love them, how often we say, Tolly says if you say it too often, it becomes meaningless, right? And that becomes very subjective. To some person, it never loses meaning. They want to hear it often. Another person wants to hear it once a week.
Very good.
The word is just a description of something, but that something is what we like to actually see and feel and experience. We're putting this superficial idea behind understanding that a love is an experience, it's a feeling, it's something we feel, and that's usually a result of some sort of action or behavior. And it is our relationship, really, that creates that. And that relationship is not that simple. It's actually complicated. There's lots of moving parts and pieces to that whole entire dynamic. So yes, it is very complicated. You can see why I just kind of approached this topic and I'm like, how in the world am I going to get this? So what is the first mention of love in the scriptures? Anybody knows? What would you think? Where would the word love pop up? You know, a lot of people think that it would be in the creation story, but it's not. And you're not going to find it anywhere around Noah or anything like that either. You're actually going to have to move into the life of Abraham to encounter the word ahava, or in the verb, let's say, love, okay? And I actually thought about it myself. I'm like, I would expect that it would be earlier on. It actually comes up in Abraham's life. Here's the verse, Genesis 22. And he said, take your son, your only son, whom you love, Isaac, and go to the land of Moriah and offer him there as a burnt offering on one of the mountains of which I will tell you. What a place to use the word love. Okay, this is the Akedah. This is what we read before we pray. This is the ultimate story of trusting God. And God says, take the son that you love and bring him to him. It says, as an olah, as an offering. Offer him up on the mountain and I'm going to show you. Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about an impact statement on the word love. And this is the first time you encounter that verb right here in the Bible. God is asking for Abraham to sacrifice the son that he loves. And that immediately puts in a question of, is love capable of doing that? And can our love be split? What happens when our love for someone is in conflict with our love for someone else? Like, I love my son, but I also love God. But what if God asks me to give up my son? Could I give up my love to someone else that I love, that I'm supposed to love? So there's many ways, of course, that we can look at the situation, but you're absolutely right. It's not that you have to choose, do I love God or do I love my son? Both loves continue, right? Both coexist simultaneously. But a lot of times we will be tested in this situation. And this idea of faithfulness comes up, right? Is love calls us for faithfulness. Love called us sometimes to sacrifice, but at other times is to be faithful and to trust. These are all sort of say subset ideas that necessarily are built in to this relationship that we describe with the word love. I mean, can you imagine love without trust? Is that really love? Can you imagine love without faithfulness? I don't think that's really fully describes it anymore all of a sudden. So there are certain components to it that I think are implicit. We don't talk about them every single time, but they're built in. And so stories like this bring them out, bring them to the forefront as we start thinking, what is love? And it is way so much more than just a feeling and just an emotion. It is an action. It is an action that essentially encompasses a whole bunch of other actions, a whole list of attitudes and behaviors that are built into this concept of love.